Just do a brief video, okay, and a brief live as well. I'm going to be recording this. And that way, if you have any questions, you can always go ahead and ask them. So again, the government is once again, right, scheduled to, or pending to be shut down because they cannot reach any resolutions. So if Congress does not like a budget deal or does not strike a budget deal by September 30th, the US government, like I said, is definitely going to be expected to shut down. And many of its operations, again, will also shut down. Okay. So that means any non essential federal employees will be sent home. Even though some media outlets are reporting that the IRS is developing like a contingency plan that would include service cutbacks during a shutdown. As of Thursday afternoon, so today, the agency or the IRS has not made any official announcements or provided any information to us on its plans. The only thing that it did say is other than the possible furlough of 60,000 employees, of which there are 90,000 employees, so 2/3 of the IRS's force will be gone. So we are definitely watching this closely and following the situation in Washington. And we'll definitely follow up in a live and also recorded video to send out um, for any other information that comes about. Okay. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but you just never know these days. Okay. So I want to kind of talk to you about what the potential issues are for both taxpayers and the IRS. Okay, if the shutdown happens. So, of course, I can't predict the future. I don't know everything, but I'm going to give you some hypotheticals. Okay. So just bear with me. This live and this video should not be too terribly long. So, if the IRS were to shut down on September 30th of this year, 2023, due to the lapse in government funding, often termed as government shutdown, okay, several key functions and processes will definitely be impacted. Okay, now it's important to note and to realize that not all of the IRS operations are going to be coming to a halt. Okay, so a big portion of it will, but not all of it. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be, if it happens, employee furloughs. And what that means, if you're unfamiliar with the term, a significant amount of IRS employees will be furloughed, meaning they're not going to be working at that time. Only employees who perform, accepted duties or are the essential employees. So those related to the safety of like human life, protection of property, etc., might continue to work. So this means there's going to be a significant reduction in manpower again with the IRS, right? So again, now we have tax processing delays. Okay. So the processing of paper returns, if you're still filing paper returns because you have like back taxes that you haven't dealt with, or if you just don't e file, those would be halted or significantly delayed. Okay. So if the shutdown is prolonged, it could definitely have another tsunami effect on the tax processing system that we experienced over the last few years when the government shutdown happened for COVID. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't last that long. But I mean, even if the IRS shuts down just for a little bit of time, it creates a tsunami effect, right? Like everything just piles up and it stacks. Um, and so it'll definitely affect the tax processing system, which, in my opinion, would literally be nothing new anymore. We've all lived through that, we've all experienced it. So we kind of know the drill, right? Uh, but it will also affect delays in your tax refund. Okay. So if you are still expecting any refund, that might be delayed. Okay. Now, the electronic filing might still be available, but with a reduced workforce, the processing of the returns and the issuance of refunds will definitely be slowed. Okay. So just be forewarned. Now, taxpayer services. Services to taxpayers like answering questions over the phone. So, like the taxpayer assistant line or providing um, in person assistance at the offices, at taxpayer assistance centers, as well as, telephone, will definitely be reduced or maybe even temporarily halted, just like it happened during COVID and any other government shutdown that has happened in the past. There's going to be limited customer service. So, the ability, once again, to get help over the phone, like I said, through correspondence or in person at an IRS office, may be limited or suspended. Okay. So this can make it definitely more challenging once again for taxpayers with questions or issues to get assistance on. Okay. Now that brings us to the audit and collection activities. So audits and other like enforcement activities, they might be suspended during the shutdown if there is one. However, this doesn't mean that taxpayers can just ignore the letters like the IRS doesn't even exist. Because guess what? They still exist, even if they're shut down. And you definitely do not want to ignore anything the IRS sends you. You will be in a world of hurt. Um, I've had many clients ignore letters and requests for information, and they got in a lot of trouble. So once again, don't ignore the request just because if it does shut down, you think, IRS, they're not working. Well, some of them are still working, as I told you, and it's still very important to make sure you're responding to the IRS timely, whether they're open or not. Okay, because guess what? Once the government reopens, the IRS is going to resume those activities. And if they don't have your information that they've asked for, those are some big consequences right there. So, while also like certain automated collection notices might still be sent out because, AI, it's, everywhere. And their IRS is trying to get better at sending out notices timely. And so they have them automated now through the collections department. And then active enforcement actions might be reduced or they might not. Okay. It's up for grabs at this point still. The deadlines, like I said, they're not stopping. Okay. So even if the IRS shuts down, I want to reiterate that taxpayers must still meet all their deadlines, whether it's filing your return or sending documents or information that the IRS will need. Okay. And this also includes paying taxes on anything that's owed from your tax return. So if you had a shortfall and you didn't have enough taxes being withheld and you owe a couple hundred or a couple thousand, those bills are still due and you're not going to get away with not paying them. Okay. You're going to still also accrue penalties and interest. Okay. Um, for any unpaid amounts. So that will still accrue and you'll have to deal with that. Now, I want to talk about the statute of limitations. Okay, if there's a statute of limitations approaching a taxpayer's case, the IRS might act to protect the government's interest. Okay, meaning that in certain cases, action might be taken even during a shutdown. So you may get an IRS visit or what have you, a nice knock on your door. So just be aware that if there's any shutdown, it's not going to affect your statute of limitations because the government looks after the government first, right? Especially the IRS. So definitely will have a huge impact on the budget, right? Since the IRS collects tons and tons and tons of revenue for the United States Treasury, a prolonged shutdown can potentially impact our budget here in America, given the agency's critical role in revenue collection. Okay. Moreover, extended shutdowns can also affect the consumer confidence and have broader economic repercussions. We're already in, financial trouble in America. So then you might get deeper into the hole if it's possible, which it definitely is. But that's a whole nother video. So, for instance, if millions of taxpayers, experience delays and receiving their tax refunds, that's potentially billions of dollars that aren't being injected into the economy. Because think about it. What do we do when we get our tax refund? Some people might be smart or might be able to afford to just sock it away, sock it away, sock it away in like a savings account or a CD or a compounding interest account, something. But most Americans are going to be spending that money. Okay, so if the tax refunds aren't going out, no one will be spending any money. So that will definitely have a huge issue on our economy, right? And then we can't forget the post shutdown backlogs, just like with COVID, when the pandemic, all that. Once the government reopens, once again, the IRS is going to be facing significant backlogs in processing returns, addressing any customer service inquiries, undertaking any enforcement activities. So it's worth noting for sure that the aspects of any government shutdown can vary based on the detail of the funding lapse, right? And anything associated or any association with the legislation at that time. So, if there were a shutdown on September 30th, 2023, so this year, the exact implications would definitely depend on the specifics of the situation at the time. So it's definitely essential that everybody, whether you're a preparer or not, as a taxpayer, you definitely want to stay and keep informed through reputable news sources, and also the IRS website. Honestly, I would just go with the IRS website over ABC or NBC or Fox or CNN. Just go straight to the horse's mouth. Okay, that's your best bet. So the specifics of what functions will remain operational and which are suspended can definitely vary, like I said, on the details of the shutdown and the decisions made by whoever the government officials are making the demands. So be sure you're visiting the irs.gov website. Okay. I would visit every few days to get the most accurate and up to date information. They also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to, and that's how I get my knowledge is by going to their website, signing up for their emails. So that way I'm always in the loop. I mean, being a tax preparer, I have to always be in the loop and taking CE courses, continuing education courses. But the general taxpayer, the general populace who's not in tax work at all, should definitely be doing the same. Okay. So that way you're always, especially if you do taxes yourself, you always want to make sure you're checking the IRS website for any updates. Okay. So as always, thank you for taking your time out and listening to me speak. Feel free to reach out to us here anytime at Ray Financial Services for your financial needs, including tax prep if you are a non-tax filer and you need to complete back taxes, we can do that for you. And then tax resolution on the back taxes. And if you just need any financial or credit coaching or consultations, okay? Our email, you can email us at info at rave, RAVE, financialservices.com, or you can book an appointment straight on our website at rayfinancialservices.com, and then you'll just click on the menu link that says book online. Okay, so thank you again so much for listening, and we will talk.